Corbin says good afternoon as well. Anything else you want to tell him? Yeah, he hopes you're having a good day. Okay, let's switch to the old Kambarooski. Hey, look at us. What are you doing? Can you see him? Corbin and I are sitting in the studio hanging out, ready to get some work done. And how was your weekend? Did you have a good one? Yeah, he said it's all right. That's good. That's nice to hear. What did we do this weekend? I think his moving around is in order to signal that we moved the house around. No? Okay. Well, okay. Hi. How are you? How's everybody doing today? I hope people have had a good day. I hope people have had a good week. A whole week. Hi, Miriam. Welcome aboard. I really like that video with Corbin. I got to change it though because it has an ad at the end of it for an event that I had recently, and I want to use that video again, but I got to get the ad part off the back. So, I hope everybody's had a good day. I have yet to receive any comments of upset or disgust for today's page. I, at this point, just assume there's a sensitive somebody everywhere. Then people are going to chide me for, suggesting that the Pope gets a haircut. Anyways, but I've had at least 2 Catholics have a good laugh at it. So, all right. Miriam says, "Love your type." Yeah, I tried a few different things for this one, and I'm always trying to look up different fonts and things like that because you can really utilize fonts to break up a story. And by having the letter, my dear friend Frankie, you sort of assume we're in the letter throughout the rest of this typing. But then when he speaks, you have that leap over to the standard word balloon and typeface. And then, of course, the third type in there is the instruction. Cut these hair pieces out and stick them on Frankie's head. Ask for help from an adult. Scissors are serious, kids. Scissors are serious. Anyhow, and I put my own toupee on there, too. Miriam likes my toupee. So it's a new look I'm going for, which is not entirely far away from how my hair used to look when I was a teenager. It's not true. My hair was, I guess the closest thing you could say would be Robert Plant. Just crazy hair. Your new hairstyle is absolutely adorable, darling. Thank you, Jim. Okay. So we're going to switch the old Kambarooski, a word that Corbin doesn't like. So I've got some paper and stuff like that laid out here in front, and I've got some pens. As is the regular, I don't have a specific tool to use each day. I have an openness to trying different things. So if there's ever a case where people would want to see me, have any questions towards any specific mark making tools that I use, let me know, and I'll try to incorporate that into the page that day. Let's see, what else? Got my new shirt. Ooh, Lori got me shirts. Exciting. It looks like I'm an adult again. Yeah, I like shirts that have things like this, like when you flip the collar and there's a little something underneath. For some reason, that's my jam. My white one's got, when you pop the sleeves, it's got this crazy pattern. It's the same as the collar, and it's like, I want more of them shirts. I just like that kind of shirt. I'm a silly boy, but there we are. Okay, so I've got a number of surfaces that we can work on. If there's anything that anyone sees that they go, that one, just let me know, and we'll work on that one today. I'm pretty open. I don't know. I thought I'd draw a ballpoint pen, unless anybody has any other suggestions. Today, I am going to be doing a page based on a suggestion from, coincidentally, Miriam. The Incognito Chicken Witness. Conspiracy chicken. I don't know how many chickens I draw at this point. So, you know, it's funny though, you know, when you get something keep popping up. They're streaming my iPad ticked like a bomb. I think as Paul has a smoke alarm, you have a ticking bomb. Nice. I really like this this suggestion. And it's less to do with the. It could have been anything, but the incognito blank witness to me is just awesome. There's just something about. I love words. I really do, and so having. Somebody commented in the comments on I think it was Instagram. They really they think that with a title like Subtle and Incremental, you could do so much with that, and it should like this. And they said that the page that I did of Subtle and Incremental, they could see as being an entire book, and that's very nice. But there's just something about Subtle and Incremental as a suggestion. It just leaves it so open and available for whatever ideas. So I think that when it comes to titles, I'm always trying to find something, you know, and like, so the page, I think it was yesterday, Fox, and it just says Fox, right? And the whole point of it just saying Fox is because it's kind of like just stating the obvious. A fox hears a guitar and goes and sits down beside the person playing it. But hopefully it helps to suggest, you know, that's actual the musical arrangement for What Does a Fox Say? That's littered through the background in that piece. But every place where it says, what does the fox say? I think I've covered up the word fox. I think I've had that being behind the characters in the page. So it's what does, you know, say. And the answer's still on the same page, right? I just like playing with words. And you know, I'm just, you know, that's my jam. Okay, today's suggestion, the Incognito Chicken Witness from Miriam. So there's a couple of things that I'm gonna try today with you. What do you mean, Chris? All right, so I've got some regular old copy paper, as well as the red paper that you see here. Maybe now I flashed out my camera. Well, do our best. Anyways, okay, so with something like the Incognito Chicken Witness, that leaves so many openings. And so what I thought I would do is to go through today's suggestion. And we did this recently where I showed breaking down an idea and generating some approaches to it. And so I thought I might try to engage some of that and to see if for us that facilitates anything that, is that better? I think that's better. I'm trying to play with the lights right now. I think this is actually better. We'll use this, get rid of that other light, because it lets this one be the prominent light. It's got a stronger value to it. So anyhow, so what I did before is that I showed how to break down a page into multiple different perspectives on the same page. And after doing so, with the remaining days in that week and that weekend, I did 5 different versions of the same story or the same suggestion. Completely different stories, completely different directions. And I tried to do them in different styles and panel arrangements and things like that. But so let's explore that. And if anybody has thoughts and ideas towards that, we can figure this out together. So we've got the division of the page. Now, we know that the suggestion is the Incognito Chicken Witness. So I've got a red pen, got a black pen. I've also got a white pen because I had considered doing it on the red piece of heavy grade cardstock. So the incognito chicken witness. Now, we've got 4 different ways we can do this. In my mind, anyways, that we could try to play with. And I'm going to leave a couple open for you to see if it's a departure from, because I feel like mine are a little standardized. The incognito chicken witness could be historical events, right? And if you have a suggestion, feel free to spit out an idea of what the chicken could be witnessing. Because some people, the specificity is king, right? So historical events in general, right? Like just sort of he's been there for all these big occurrences. And for this, let's just say North American, because I don't know where else chickens existed or have existed or always have. I'm not sure if they were a North American creature. My voice is mostly back, but I still have the cough. By the way, we had a really nice birthday party for my son last night. It was a lot of fun. He's a cool kid. I like that kid a lot. But every family has that one that they play everything tight to the vest. How you doing? Good. Okay. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's who he is. But, lots of smiles from him last night, and I like that. So, okay. The incognito chicken witness, historical events in North America. That's just sort of general, right? Well, we can play with that a lot, So then another way that we can do this is dawn of man, dawn of mankind, and then we can play with that and have all kinds of, different perspectives towards that. What am I missing? Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Only his hairdresser knows for sure, Christopher. Never mind. The JFK assassination would be in historical North American events, right? So that fits in the first one, right? Dawn of Mankind. So this is where we get either the 2001, or we get space aliens, or panspermia. Sounds gross. It's not. Relax. Panspermia means that maybe an asteroid came and hit the planet from outer space, and it had matter on that asteroid that then fused into the chemical matter that the planet was composed of at the time, chemical seas, and instigated life. That's the panspermia hypothesis. So, Dawn Man, Planet of the Apes. I think we can fit that one in there. It could be a funny turn out of that, right? So we've also got the option right now, if anybody has ideas for a complete departure from this historical context, or historical real and historical fiction, right? Well, which one's the truth? But there's the incognito chicken witness could be for a major event, like this is where you get into the sort of really playing into fiction, is that, and now for something completely different. You can have, mankind goes to space, and the incognito chicken witness is, this is the fun part, is that when you sit down and you approach something like an idea of, well, what does the incognito chicken mean? Is it a chicken in a trench coat standing in a corner? Is it just a chicken going, just trying to look nonchalant and being chickeny as they're just taking everything in, but have no context whatsoever with the scenario that they're in? Or is the chicken, people turn and look at it, is that a chicken? Ignore me! there's so many ways that it can be played, right? So mankind goes to the space, and the chicken is there, and we don't have to explain it at all. I did a page recently where I inserted little ghost cats, and well, recently, this year. I say recently, and I mean the entire year. There's a ghost cats and inserted into every panel, and somebody I know really loved having to find the cats. And so this is sort of similar in that regard, where mankind goes to space, and you can have this entire page be, the rockets were fueled and everything, the astronauts were ready. And every one of these shots, for no reason at all, we can have chickens in some places, some context, So that's my thinking on that one. And chickens, chicken, right? Now, Miriam has suggested dinosaurs. Well, I think dinosaurs we'll put in the Dawn of Mankind one, because there's some fun that we can have with that. But it's, again, it's that sort of fiction historical that we really don't have any specific record of. Barbara says that my age recently is defined by anything since 1970. I hear you, Barbara. I hear you. We were talking with the kids last night, and about the challenges of the current generations, and how the things that they've had to deal with, as young people and teens, and there's a division in our kids. Jamie is my oldest is a previous generation to the other four, and no, I'm sorry, it's even worse than that. There's this little space in between the two generations. So Jamie sits in one of them. 3 of the kids are in that void area, and then the youngest is a millennial. Or no, is it? One of them's a millennial on the outside. I think it's the 3. I don't know. I don't care. And it's just amongst our 5 kids, because there's this big gap. They touch on 3 different real groups of experience. And so we started explaining to them, yeah, but you kids, it's not as, it's just generally crazy for you guys, where we had extreme crazies, like in the 1980s. Try being a teenager during the Satanic Panic. For those, because this is before the internet, we could get other sources of information. So we were trying to example things like, in the 70s, unless you spent a lot of money, you wore straight cut pants, like things like that. Like it's hard to get these different comparisons going, and some of it's just so crazy in its context. So, anyways, I hear you about recently 70s and up. I like that. Okay, so mankind goes to space. Why is the chicken there? There's all the Dawn of Mankind stuff. And if there's a 4th idea that comes to anybody's mind, let me know, and we'll put that in here. But in the meantime, so let's look at historical events. There's a couple of ways, and I'm going to shake up the way in which we put together each page. Okay, so one of the standard ways to do a narrative, and I flip it, is the whole objective is to put the viewer in the top left corner and the Western world. Okay. We read from left to right, from top down to bottom. So generally, you're moving this way. Okay. Now you can go this way, this way, this way, however many rows you've got of panels or whatever it is. But objectively, you want to get from there to there on the map, on the map of the page, right? So there's a number of different ways that we can do this. We can break our page up into uniform panels and use these 10 panels, or this under the structure of 10 panels, and tell our story A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, right? But again, we want the I to be directed like so, there to there, because we've set these 2 panels up. Now, all the examples of omission, and by omission I mean this panel has a border, this panel has a border, this little piggy has none. It's just a floating character in a void. Okay? It's still the same thing. It's still variations on a form, even if you've got the same thing laid out where you've got, so here's our rough shape breakdown that we know the underlying structure is. But say your first panel is here, and then the next panel, and they cascade like this as though somebody's falling through space, right? And then, of course, we've left all this ample space for all the dialogue up here to carry us around and to continue us back around this loop so that we can, set this lower panel in here. These lower panels down below. And maybe they've got frames on them or maybe they don't. It doesn't matter. But this is what I mean by you can really challenge and change up that form by reallocating the panels, but subjectively, they're still within this format. We've changed the size of the panels. Subjectively, they're still in the format. You've removed the borders from the panels. Da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And then, so that's another approach. We can also we can have our main character and have no panels at all. And all we have, let's say, one shot, one scene here where we've got the tops of some buildings and in a cityscape. Okay, so our guy is got his hands on the part of the roof. His feet are kicking up in front of him, and we've already started him in a state of motion where he's jumping over. But what we can do with the rest of this page is still carry our viewer with us by having all of these actions of him falling down to the page, through the page that we've got established for ourselves. It's one image, but we're moving the reader through the course of action of having all of the different things that our guy is doing as he's, leaping and bounding about through this space. And of course, his scale gets smaller as we recede off into that perspective. But it's one static image. But there's all of these actions, these recurring actions that are taking place on the same page. Paul says, hello. How you doing, Paul? Welcome aboard. Good to see you, sir. So this is another option. I mean, it's a single panel. It's a single image, and it's an entire cityscape. But despite the single panel, the single image cityscape, we've got all of these moments of action, and then we can have dialogue coming out of him as he's saying to himself, I've got to get across town to save those people. Hopefully nothing's happened while I've been away. And so as he's going through these thought processes and saying these things to himself, we're moving our reader from here to here through the dialogue and the positioning of our character. Now, there's a sophistication in that there's an assumption that the reader understands that this isn't 17 versions of, who we thought our superhero was. This isn't that there's 17 different guys dressed up like that. Hopefully, in an understanding of this, there is a recognition that it's the same character but moving through space. It's a funny thing. And some of these French caves where you see the cases where there's the hunter and he's got the spear. And so here's the hunter, and in the next shot, this one has not got a spear because he's thrown it. And then here's a third hunter with his hands up, and there's a spear. So we've got a big bison, in its abstract shape. And then the next bison is getting hit by a spear. And then the third bison, and it'll even overlap them one on the other. And the third bison's got a spear in it. And we've always thought that this is a tribe hunting a herd of bison, and it's not. There's a realization now that if you segment all of these overlapping images, this is a sequence of events. And so they're finding that in some of these cases now. So I'm so happy to be here. Now that there are 3 here, I need to know if you want to be in a streamathon. We're going to open one more day so you can stream in your day and time on Tuesday. Miriam, I'm just streaming on Monday at 2 o'clock. I appreciate the streamathon thing you guys are doing, but I'm just doing my normal time. I appreciate it, though. It's, there's no problem with overlapping now. I don't see any point in changing it. Hey, Paul, how's your comic going? This is all a simulation. Don't get too excited. Christopher, my last few pages were all action. I had to figure out how to show the action clearly, and it's really complicated. It is, and again, it's just looking at segmenting action, right? And if we can segment action like so, when we start looking at it from that perspective, yeah, I'll be doing it at Tuesday at 2 o'clock as well, Miriam. Like I'm doing my normal thing, but I appreciate it. So we've got so here he is jumping through the air here now on a smaller scale. And we know for a fact that these different actions of carrying our character through the space kinetically moves the reader, and it gives a larger sense of physical movement to our reader. So this is a wide open approach as opposed to this closed approach of established panels. And then, of course, comes the variations in that where you've got your standard grid-like consideration. But then we do this where, well, we want the first panel to be larger. And then we've got, a smaller tight panel on an expression. Oh, no. And then we do, a third panel of a response and an open-ended panel that's overlapping, and somebody's, holding a gun and pointing it this way, and then that moves the eye down to here, and the next person's got their hands up, and it's an open panel again to suggest the connection to this one. And then we can do a closed panel that has the 2 of them talking, but they're within the same space. There's all these little ticks, little bits and tricks that we can do along the way to connect panel exchanges to one another while at the same time having variation of them. Then you get into the image period. For those of you that got into comics in the 1990s, a problem with a lot of the image period of comics in the 1990s. Barbara says, I'm still stuck if it's the hunter being the hunted. Oh, there we go. If we do a wide panel here, and this whole space is your first panel, right? And then we have, you can go vertically and have different widths of panels, and the different width, you pronounce it however makes sense to you, is that it actually gives a sense of expediency or prolongment of time. So a wider panel, tends to make the viewer stick around longer. Shorter panels, smaller panels, expedite time. I mean, if you've got 3 panels of somebody going this way, and this way, it makes your head go that they're doing this. Whereas you've got a wide panel where somebody's just going and turning their head and looking this way, it can suggest the same thing. It's just this establishes more kinetic movement than that one. So it's not just a size, it's not just a scaling thing, and it's not just how wide a panel is or how much information is in the panel. It's also about how we use those panels in static, whatever, right? So it's kind of fun. Take a look at different opportunities like that. So then we've got another one where we've got the vertical line up over here, and the happenstance is moving across the page in the same way, and the people are going to conclude. So your bottom word bubble or whatever may be down here at the very bottom of it, or you put your signature down there, and that draws the eye to it, right? And then we get into a different approach to that. We've got characters in correlation with one another. So we've got, Bob America standing with his legs astride. And he says, everybody, I want to know this thing. And you can have characters sitting here around him. Here's so-and-so with his hands leaning on his knees, and he's sitting there listening. And then you've got this one with his arms laid out, and he's got his feet dangling out in front of him. And so this group of characters, and so-and-so's talking about, here's what we're going to do. And this one's just sitting up like a good student. Anyways. So you can have the dialogue moving like so, but then we can have little additional balloons that we throw in. And this gets back into the 90s period as well, where we have, Bob, you fight Bill. And here's a picture of Bill, or let's say, John, you fight Bill. And over here, and Gary, you fight Carl. And there's a picture of the guy Gary's got to fight. There's Carl. And Tina, you fight Dr. Destructo. So, and then he says, and then we have another panel that follows here, which is the same shot as this guy's face. It says, any questions? And then the last panel is, he says, he claps his hands together and, clap. And it says, let's go. And everybody's getting up and moving towards the door, or getting up to leave. So while it's a bunch of random smattering of panels, what it actually gives is the opportunity for the reader to get these important points noted in there with the smaller panels moving around throughout the composition. This person's fighting that person. And while this is one single static image, we've put these little vignettes of all the villains in there just to note, and connect the viewer to hero, villain, hero, villain. And so the next page of a story like this, when you flip it open, is going to be, this hero specifically fighting against, or facing off against this villain, like a gun draw at noon. And, and then we have that action start to happen, and it switches over to this one facing off with that one, or, jumping through a window and trying to, I got you, I caught you at the hot dog stand. I don't know. And we are aware of the differences between these two and these two because we set it up in advance on a page like that. And so this thing does so much for your exposition in a very limited amount of space. So car moving, people running. Okay, so Paul says, yes, that's the man. Okay. I have cars moving and people running, but they need to be on the driver's side. Action naturally moves left to right. So I was getting all messed up. Yeah, but what about, I saw one panel where a guy was jumping at a car, or he's throwing something at a car to the other person. I thought that panel worked really well. If you got left to right and it's cars moving, what do we got? Cars moving and people running. It's just imagine the placement of the camera, right? If you shake up the panel so that we've got so-and-so at the wheel, and, here's this guy. I don't know what the page is, Paul, so I'm just being goofy. But here's this guy trying to climb into his window. That you've already sort of established the identifiable space between the two, like just by allowing yourself a panel that has the two contextualized together. You don't need to entirely worry about the relationship of the two of them together at all times, because if the next panel is this guy spinning the wheel that way, okay, we know Bozo's outside the window, right? So we can change our camera angle to look like it's shooting right here. We could even put his foot in the way if you wanted to, and his knee, but he spins and Bozo goes flying, right? So here he goes flying away from the car, and you can have a small shot of the car as it spins around, and knocks him flying. And so we see him going back this way through the air on our page. And then we can just separate the two and focus on back and forth and back and forth. And you've liberated yourself from it. Or if it's an extended scene, then you can do all the extensions. But sometimes looking at it from just the identifiable parameter of here's the start of it. And I've introduced that they're in context with one another, but every panel isn't reliant on full shots of both of them. What happens with the Brits? Oh, on the other side of the car? There you go. You just switch it's far easier with the Brits because you just put them on the opposite side of the car. You don't want to suing the artist for whiplash. Oh, artist, yeah. Barry over there blew up the world in his last book. Kind of. Anyways. So this is some different ways of looking at how we're going to break up a page. I also like, and I'm going to do some more right over top of the others, but hopefully because I'm using a darker value, I'll be able to separate the two. I also like the idea of where you've got the person who's looking down and looking forlorn, and they got their hands, in their lap, and they're talking to the, and they're looking down towards their feet, and you can't see anything in the background, but what we've got is, because of the dialogue, like we can have our title here or not, but so there I was, and I got into this, and as soon as the balloons cross from this panel into this first one, and we do a splashback, you can direct the course of action on that page from this full-size panel into these short ones, and we direct the reader to go from here to here first, and then they go across, and then we direct them back down to here, and then they go across to there. And so there's little things that you can do like that as well. It's just considering using the visual part of the page as well as using the textual part of the page. And it works. So this is why I don't keep myself in a static form of dialogue for the most part. And there are pages where I've done that. If you look back at EC Comics in the 1950s would tell their stories with the balloon largely here and a dialogue box with all of the text laid out in the top. There was a great deal of EC Comics stories that had that. Now, they did get into all kinds of other stories, but generally, you'd see a lot of other stories that had the balloon panels of the people talking allocated at the top of the regular visual panels. So you're still isolating all of our text up here and the visual elements down below. And then you started seeing a shakeup in form and direction, because in the 50s, they were really, this was a really hardcore experimental time in comics, right? And so this is where a lot of different forms were being pursued and shaken up. Now, there's always people that hold out in advance of that. Like, of course, Will Eisner when he was doing The Spirit, and I've shown this before about how you incorporate titles and credits for books, or titles and synopses of what the adventure is about in the first page, or in like a title page of a story. Or you'd have little motifs, like you'd have a postcard in the top, in the top of a page, and you'd have the postcard laid out, like here's a postcard in the sand because they're running through the desert. But he would have these postcards involved. And in this case, here's a Jeep driving away, puffs of smoke, as the postcard's lying there in the sand. It's been dropped as somebody goes by in the Jeep. In this scene, and then in this one, we've got, somebody holding the postcard in their hand, and they're reading it, but the postcard superimposes over top. So we're seeing what they're reading. And so it's like a floating panel over a panel that engages the scene. And so there's all kinds of motifs that he used like that, or he'd have the spirit, like it's spray paint melting down, like a spray paint on the side of like a graffito on a building, or he would have the spirit, like it's shadows being cast along the side of the building, and he would have an explanation for that by the way he'd have the little pipes and things for the tops of roofs in such a way that if the light was to go through those, it would say spirit on the wall. Like he would do all kinds of things like that. Barbara says, when the wind chill is 18 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit 1 degree Celsius, but my work partner is still expecting me. Thanks. Oh, okay. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Buckle up, dress warm. Okay. So with all of these different perspectives and stuff that we're looking at, the historical events, right? I'm sorry, I didn't show one more example. I'm going to try to do it on this gigantic hodgepodge of information. But the other one is the floating panels. And the floating panels are, and we're going to use floating panels for the first one. And it's almost like, imagine a series of watercolors. So here is, guys, he's got his hands holding the pole, and he's at the back of the boat. What's it called in Venice? Gondola, a gondola. And, so here we start with the dude in the gondola, and here's the guy and the girl. And so he's not doing anything, or he's not an active participant aside from the fact that it sets the scene and it sets an identifiable way of action. That there's the person pushing the boat. But then he says, hey, Mary. And she says, what now? Or whatever she says to him. And then we can get into, here's Mary and here's Bob. And so we've just switched our shot from the front of the boat. But here's still Mary and here's still Bob. And here's still our gondola guy in the background, reduced in scale, to just try to promote the idea that, of a forced perspective from the boat. So, but these are open-ended panels. There's no border around them. There's no connectivity in any way other than that we know it's the same characters. Oh, Miriam's saying bye. So you can even go inside on a person's face, and just do a cut shot where you've put a line along the bottom to just sort of give a sense of finality to the panel. But it's not a closed panel. It's just Bob looking at Mary and continuing this dialogue where he's professing all the reasons that she should share jelly beans with him. And, again, we can do that thing where we move down to the bottom and have Mary's response. She's, down here, and she's saying, well, Bob, I appreciate that, but I want to eat all the green jelly beans and you want the green jelly beans. So whatever the argument or conversation is, it doesn't matter. But this panel is entirely open. So I'm just trying to show a whole bunch of different approaches that can be taken in exploring stories and breaking those down. So I hope that helps people. I hope that's a benefit. And it's a haphazard and scribbled and overlapping mess, but I think that if you've got any questions about some of the examples, feel free to watch back and pause or whatever you need and make your own notes, because, if I copy this for people, it would be far less intelligible than whatever notes you're going to make. But just keep in mind the first principle I showed you, there to there. And if there's more and more panels and more layers, even if the action's just moving across, the dialogue can take us this way. We can have the dialogue go to here, and then it picks up down below. And we know it'll pick up down below because we've read all of this dialogue and went, oh, the words continue down below. So you've actually made the viewer's eye go like this, and a Z shape on the page with a single image that's only going diagonally down a page. That's why I talk about the fusion of the visual and the textual and all the different potentialities that you have for telling your story. It's a different way to look at it. You can have any static image and just have the text moving around said static image. And it doesn't, the other part of it is that this does not have to be on the same wavelength that this is. I did a page for the last book that we put out, the one-page comic extravaganza. I did a page where it's a car crash. It's literally a car wheeling around the top of a cliff and going over the edge, and at the bottom it's careening off the cliff. Pardon me. But the text through the whole thing is talking about how people try to convince themselves that everything that hasn't worked out, well, we'll give it another try, and it might work out this time. If we just go at it again, stop clawing everything. Sorry. If we just go at it again, then it might be better. Things will be smooth sailing then. And at the end of the page, so it's the sort of delusion of this isn't going to work, but we're still going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So at the bottom where the dialogue says things will be smooth sailing then is the last panel. I have the car flying off the cliff to try to, illustrate my point is that, no, they're not, but I'm talking about people doomed to repeat mistakes on a page where a car's spins at a corner and flips and rolls and explosion and then boom off the side of a cliff. And while one doesn't necessarily look like it goes with the other, symbolically it does. So allow yourself opportunities like that as well, because that's fun to play with, using one visual representation that might not necessarily easily fit hand in hand with the text that you've got on the page. You're trying to make some sort of anecdote or make some sort of example on a point. You're editorializing. You're sort of trying to suggest an idea, but the visual image that you're showing is something completely separate. I did a page recently about violence, and the panel, the actual page itself, is my version of Batman and all of his bad people. And my Batman's a dude wearing a towel for a cape and just is leaning back to punch. His belly's exposed, and they're all wearing weird garish outfits. But Miriam says, "I'll be right back." Okay, we'll see you in a sec, Barbara. But what I'm talking about is power fantasy, and I'm talking about this idea of, because Batman at one point in comics has like 12 monthly books coming out, and you can't get one regular Aquaman comic out, or you can't get one regular Wonder Woman one, but you can get 12 Batman stories for Batman and all of his, daguerreotypes, or all the other, junior Batman that he's, adopted recurringly over the years. Batgirls now, but the idea of power fantasy as a fallacy to me is the thing I wanted to talk about. And so I make this example on top of a silly drawing, but at the end I have an interjection of an idea where Grandma is in the floating panel embossed over top of the layered panel that the image is. And she says, "Listen, if you kids don't stop fighting, I'm going to come over there and I'm going to," and then it says underneath, "Oh, Grandma." Because here I am talking about enough of this violence, enough everybody constantly threatening each other and being violent with each other. and then I have Grandma do it. And the response of it is, whether it's the audience or if it's the entirety of the cast, goes, "Oh, Grandma." It's just playing on an idea and looking at an idea and then representing both aspects of said idea. So again, I don't expect anybody looks at what Paul says, "Back kids, back Grandma." There you go. I don't expect anybody to look at my pages and look for some deeper meaning on everything I do, because I'm not going to lie to you. There's no deeper meaning on every single thing I do. But there are instances where I do try to put stuff in, and I do try different approaches. This week I did a page with no text. I did a page written as a rhyming couplets, and but the rhyming couplet page is an open call to, let's put an end to this power disparity between ourselves and them, the those in control, those who are in charge. And I write this open call for action as a poem. Whether it makes any deeper connection to anybody, I don't know. I don't care. The whole point of doing these things is to explore and to challenge myself with different approaches and different ideas and different executions, and really trying to take things apart and try putting the Legos back together in different ways, without doing it in this overly intellectualized break, which is what you see a lot of. And I don't know, but I can't read those. I own a few of those books, but I don't think I've ever sat through one of them without forcing myself over 5, 6, 7 attempts. There's value to them, and people get a great deal out of them. But I would sooner, you can sit down for 3 years and just read books about fixing a car, or you can talk about parts in a car and then open the lid of the car and let's look at those parts. Chances are that guy's going to be fixing a car before the other one. In this case, we're going to be trying different things with comics before, just relying on the reading of it. So, okay, with all that in mind, and with this experimental considerations that, we're trying to consider in our heads as we're doing whatever we're doing. Oh, Miriam's back. So let's look at this. The historical events. Now, we can do it like this with the open panels for the historical events, or we can do it with these closed panels. Okay? Now, keeping in mind the differentiation in size, the differentiation of scale, and the differentiation of repetition changes the pacing. So, did you say 5, 6, 70 times? Did I? I don't know. More than likely. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds like something I'd say, Paul. It's yeah, more than likely. Anyhow, so the incognito chicken witness, historical events. So let's start here. So we're looking at the settling of North America. Now, we can have our first great ship, like so. What is it? The Santa Maria Domingo Japita. There's 3 lovely rhyming names that I can't remember. So we've got our first thing, our first boat. We've got our second boat that is following up with a short distance. And we've got, our third boat over here. And it's got all of its jazz. And so hopefully, if I scale these correctly, it gives you a sense of distance from one another. Okay? But what we can do is be cheeky, and we can have our chicken right here on the front of the first boat. So there's our first instance of the incognito chicken witness at a historical event. So there's we'll put our chickie there. And then, so what do we got? Give me some examples if anybody has any. Or I'm going to go on with my crazy ideas. So my second idea is that we've got our guy, and he's running with, he's got his rifle here as he's, he's got a shot set up for him to try to catch a deer. Give him a big backpack, okay, and with the bedroll on top, and here we'll have him standing in our foreground, like so, as he's sneaking up, and then here floating in the background is where we'll have our deer looking at him going, Jack, what's your deal? Really bad deer. But again, we can incorporate our chicken into this event and have the chicken, for whatever reason, on his shoulder. Again, that doesn't have to have legitimate contextuality. We're talking about an incognito chicken witness that experiences all the historical happenstance of the development of North America, since the honkies got here. So there's our first instance, and then here's our second instance. And we don't have to decide on whether or not we're going to do panels as yet. We can just have, there's another approach is, if I got room, if I've got the 3 boats, okay. Now, and there's the chicken. What I can have is some of the waves like so, okay, and some of the clouds in the sky up above them, and it's, blue there. But basically imagine as though the watercolors, will find the crisp edge of the clouds, or like a softening value from the sides of the sails to, an inch or so on the outside, or a half inch, and blur, have a soft edge around here, as though it's like we're looking through a filtered lens. So then when we do the shot of the deer with the hunter, and we've got our hunter in the foreground and the chicken on his shoulder, again, we've got trees and we've got different parts of the environment, but we can just have this soft watercolored edge around there. So you can have an open-ended panel in a different regard by utilizing a different set of tools. So here's our, there's the ships, here's the settlers. We can have homesteaders, right? And how about this? We've got a guy, and he's got a hold of a saw, all right? He's got his hand here, and his second hand is holding down below, and then the saw blade, like so, and we'll have it cutting through, he'll be sectioning a tree trunk, okay? And as we have the blade go through in this panel, what do you think's at the other end of the saw blade? You guessed it, the chicken. And if we differentiate the appearance of these guys, not only by their dress, we could change the values to denote a change in time. We can, like the color values that we use, we can change, facial features. And one guy's got a big bushy mustache and is burly man, and the next person's, more regular sized figure, and he's got a really elegant mustache, or he's got stubble, like he looks like he needs to shave. The next person we can have is, a fantastic mustache, and he's in a military suit of some sort of complex. But by having, it's sort of becomes a case of where's the chicken going to be next, and then we can have this tree trunk. We can have a limit to its edge, and then we've just got this watercolor around here, and we can even have another sliced off piece down sitting on the floor, so you get the idea. They're sectioning it like a cake. And in the background, to draw the viewer to a point, we can have him building his log cabin. So, and it just sort of takes the eye around, dances around, but then gives us a limit to our panel. So we're using the open format for this one, right? What are we at? We're at an hour. We're doing good. Dee Dee says the chicken needs to be in Woodstock. Okay, so that's a fun one. So our next one is what have we got? Settlers, homesteaders. We can have. Let's just jump again to a family sitting on the front of a carriage. Okay, and here is our, this presentation of a wagon train that is used during the period where, you've got, I drawn actual sawhorses just to be funny. Anyways, the covered top wagon with the family sitting on it and being pulled by horses, nobody did that. Nobody did that. All of your goods were jammed up in this sucker, and the family walked beside the wagon, is how most of these pioneers across the prairie traveled with their wagons, because it's just more burden on the horses to drag your lazy butt across the country. But it's a fun thing that we always represent this wagon with the whole family, Ma and Pa and the kids, right? But it's baloney, completely baloney. The truth is that they walked beside the wagons. And, you'd have somebody on top, and you'd teach your kids to drive a wagon so that they could handle all the goods. Some goods would be covered, or some wagons would be covered, but not all of them. Narco Chicken Peace Man. So there's our pioneers. I'm going through the different specific stages of Americana. And in our examples across here. And what else would we have? We would have our, what would be next? It wouldn't be pioneers. We led right into industry. I think the industrialists were next. We started to get oil being started to be prospected for. And I mean, I guess it'd be gold. It was gold before oil, gold panning, and the railroad. Railroad was a massive one. So, I mean, we can have somebody standing up here on a hill, right? And we can put them on their little hill, and they're overlooking train track being laid across a prairie, right? A couple of mountains in the backyard. And here's all the teams of people putting the track in. And then, for whatever reason, there's that darn chicken. Where did I put the chicken on this one? Oh, well, that's an easy one. The chicken's top of the thing or something like that. But then here's the chicken again in this one where he's overlooking the hill too, because he's the sneaky witness, right? So there's our industry, the early days of steam-driven industry. People, and that's where you get the railroad moving across the country where the farmers all are. And this represents the whole farmers setting up across America. And then we've got the train being implemented in there. And then you would have the next aspect of industry. This is where we get everything all crazy, is that we can do it a couple different ways. We can just focus on this one tiny moment here of gunfighters, or we can have urbanization. And, we can, I think urbanization's fun. Some kids playing with a hoop. Why don't we do that? And have a couple little kids running along, after the little boy who's got the stick with the hoop. And have storefront. Actually, let's not do storefront. Let's do some of the buildings where we have our walk-ups and our brownstones, right? Do you know why in New York and all the older major North American cities, why they all have these stairs on their brownstones that lead up to the doors? So it's a really fantastically disgusting reason why. Horses. It's the same reason that beside every door is two posts with a shank of metal, a flat piece of metal welded across them. And that is for your boots, so that as soon as you walk up those stairs, you scrape your boots off on a plate of metal, because of the streets were completely full of business. And whether it's people throwing it out their windows or it's horses taking care of business as on the move, that's why all those walk-ups are there in major cities. Anyways, so we've got kids, with a hoop. We'll have some windows up here, and we'll put our chicken in a window. There's the chickie there. There's the chickie there. What do we got? There's the chickie there. There he is helping on the... I guess he's not incognito if he's sitting on there. They just think he's a chicken. Chicken. Anyhow. So there's our period of urbanization. And then, next is Civil War. Excuse me. And this is where you've got... Let's make this crazy for the birds. So as we've got the Unionists all marching with their guns, and they're doing their whole, hey, look at us, goose stepping through the streets. So as they're all moving through, and we'll have that number of them receding as they move along, and then we'll have the general riding high on his horse as he's moving along as well. Hey, I'm a horse. Okay, so there's those guys, and we can have the chicken take off running. A little subversive thing of my thoughts on war. Anyways, so that we can have as the next panel, and conflict, civil conflict. Where are we at? Am I missing stuff? I've got lives to save and kittens to rescue. Gotta go. Much love to you, brother. Happy Thanksgiving. When's Thanksgiving for you guys? Is that today or tomorrow? Tomorrow's a different special day, Jim. Anyways, bye, Jim. Bye. See you later, buddy. But if it is Thanksgiving, for those of you that do that thing, happy Thanksgiving. The Canadian one is before the American one. So civil conflict, and then we'll get into politic. Now, politic takes place far earlier, right? Politic goes all the way back to here. But, or we can switch from politics. Let's just drop politics. These suck. Let's just get into industry. And, here's all the big industrial buildings, and we'll just draw lots of grit and grime, and now everybody's got a smokestack, and those smokestacks are all spitting bile up into the sky from coal, right? But we'll draw steel industry or coal industry at this point. This isn't coal, this is dirtier. And we'll just have a building in the foreground, and on said building there's chicken. Witnessing the industry. And then, I don't know, let's just have the chicken typing. This is where we got to do a leap of fun. And then here's the chicken typing on the keyboard for technology. Light them up there. There we are. So there's your historical one with an open panel format, right? So that one still follows this standard start here, move across down to there. See the cheeky thing I did with the wagon train on an angle, which makes the eye go down to this corner? Because I'm sneaky. So there we go there, and back along this way. Okay, so second approach to the incognito chicken witness is the dawn of mankind. So I'm going to do this in black so that because I got to go over these words. So the dawn of mankind is this one. Historical events of North America is this one. We missed Woodstock and stuff. I'm sorry for that, but so that's our same chicken moving through time, and we can have the chicken get older if we want to. Like he's got, tufts of hair, and he's at this point he's all wrinkly, like he's just been witnessing. He's been living since the start of the North American setup. Oh, Miriam says a lot of chickens in this story. Yeah, I guess so. What's meant to be one chicken? Age the chicken. Age the chicken. So, old chicken. Anyhow, so our next one, 2001 Space Aliens, Panspermia, Planet of the Apes. Now, there's two ways you can do this. We can open up with, here's Earth, okay? And here's mankind, or it sort of sets a place for we're automatically back at the past. I like the idea of having a first panel. Let's go. Let me know what you think on this. And it's just a crowd in a city street. People going this way, people going that way. There's little people, there's big people, there's tall people, there's short people, there's wide people, there's thin people. So, right? And so here's a city crowd. Put that in perspective. But just crowded street. That's all we've got. Right? Mankind covers the planet, yada, yada, yada. And Miriam says, conspiracy chickens. Yeah, that's exactly it. So there's our first thing. And then our next panel, mankind completely covers the planet, blah, 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 blah. We can either do, to continue to example how proliferant mankind has been about covering the planet and beyond, we can say that at this point, we've got the International Space Station up in space, various satellites, and we can draw a ship as it's looking to go colonize the moon, whatever it is. All right, but we can do this is furthering our dialogue to say, people, blah, 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 they've even colonized the planet, right? So there's our introduction into people all over the place. Tomorrow in my stream will be a conspiracy turkey. There you go, Miriam. A turkey which you will gobble gobble. Anyways, so then we can say, this is where we can have some fun and have an open panel with just a big old question mark that says, but how did this come to be? So this is when we get into the early days of simians in front of, squatting and kneeling in front of the monolith from 2001, right? And that's one possibility. What else we got? We can have a spaceship that has flown overhead and boop, 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 beamed down. Here's a boy, here's a girl. Okay, and there's our second example. What else we got? Oh, panspermia, an asteroid. So we can use the asteroid example. I think I'd make this 3 layers, three layers for it, because there's so many fun little examples you can do. But there's our, panspermia idea. And then what else we got next? Panspermia. Planet of the Apes. And okay, so for Planet of the Apes, we can do a picture of a gorilla up on top of a horse. The horse, riding in the foreground as it's, kicking its legs up in the back and tail flying behind it. And here's the horse. And then we can have people running from, the ape on the horse chasing them. Ah! And here's this person running here. So there's apes, and then we've got, so rather than saying evolved from apes, no, this was the Planet of the Apes, and we just got away. So all you ape lovers out there. And so the next suggestion was dinosaurs. I like this idea. Bear with me for a sec. Is the dinosaur's head turned around? This is a dumb one. And here's his collar and his lead, and here's her caveman, which is so dumb. Whee! Sliding down the neck of the dinosaur. Does anybody know where I'm going with this yet? There's the Flintstones. And then we'll draw a picture of a quarry in the background and all the rocks sticking here and there, hither and yon out of it. So there's our Flintstones. Miriam says circular panel divided with a chicken in the middle, and every idea in a piece of a circle. Circular panel with a chicken in the middle, and every idea is yeah. So I got a really fine example of that I can show you. Here is so I got a couple examples of this. I think this is, this might be one, and the other is here. Now, these are, pardon me, X-Man books that, yabba dabba doo, there you go, well done. These are different collections of X-Man stories, but the covers are in the back, and amongst said covers are some rather elegant pieces of art. So this is one where Moira McTaggart is a person that every time she dies, she goes into her next existence and retains all the memories of her previous existence, and so goes into these different worlds and these different choices and these different options. So here are the different iterations of her, and then here is all the different characters around her. So that's a really fun geometric way of doing that to show as an example. And then you've got, I'm not sure which one of these it is, but give me 1 second and I'll show you. I just know at one point this character is made aware of all of their different realities. And then when doing so, when dealing with this situation, it just sort of makes this sort of shatter point around them. I don't think it's that one. Bear with me a sec. I don't know if it was a cover or if it was an internal panel. But it's a very powerful image. Maybe it's not one of these. Well, either way, it was a similar scenario to the other. It just, yeah, it's too bad. I don't know which one it is. I'm not going to waste any more time doing that. But this first example that I showed you is a really fantastic execution of that idea using geometric shapes. Miriam says that shows us that Christopher not only buys these books, but all those books, but he reads them. I read everything. Yeah, I've read everything that are on my shelves. I read extensively, but I've got at least half a dozen books on the go at all times. It's a little, I got problems. So yeah, so this is a really great example of that, where, but in this context, you could have the chicken here and then outlying circles of events. And it's specifically a circle pattern on the one I was looking for. But yeah, we can example that. Like here's the chicken. And if I can figure out a way to draw a chicken winking, I would draw the chicken winking. And then it just becomes, it's called a shatter point, is what this breakdown on a page is. It's called a shatter point because the idea is that all intersections go back to the central node. So yeah, you could draw all kinds of different events, going on throughout. And at the same time, another thing that we could do on the next circle is either we do more iterations of events where we, but in order to show flow, we would differentiate them to cross over just to make it a little more interesting visually, instead of just having continually. So you would do it like so, right? Okay, so, but then on the outside, I think it would be funny to draw the chicken in various costumes. Not just the situations of the events, but if we don't incorporate the chicken in every one of those panels, then I would suggest putting the chicken, like a whole cascading amount of the chicken in different outfits as he blends into each environment. That might be fun. I need to go to your house one day, not just to visit you and Lori, but to read all your books. That's not a day. That wouldn't be one day. That would be, I don't know how long it would take you to read all of this junk. I have 8 bookshelves. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I have 8, and then Lori has 9, sorry. And then we've got one in the grandkids' room, and then Lori has 1, 2. Yeah, we got a lot of books in this house. We got problems. Anyways, so these are different chicken through time. So that's just an alternate take on number 1, is number 4. It's just an alternate approach to it. And, it forces the reader to not just engage, but to move the image around in order for them to see all the different aspects and all of the different characters, in order for them to get in the entirety of the imagery. And when you've got things like this guy and this guy are upside down. Now, this one and this one are upside down as well. And in order to see these characters in the right perspective, you really got to go for a second lap around. It's kind of fun. So that's a great example too. Dawn of Mankind, you can have a couple in a garden, right? With all kinds of leaves and bushes and whatnot, and then 2 big trees on the hill. People only think it's 1 tree, it's 2 trees. Anyways, so there's your religious context, and then Western religious context. And then for our last one, Let's put the chicken with his arms up. You know, there's his chicken feet. He's like, I don't know. I don't know. There's Eden. So there's another one. I didn't tell you how many birthdays I'm gonna There you go. So for our fourth one, we've got Mankind Goes to Space. So this is so the intention for this one is all of these panels is the different aspects of the rocket. There's the cockpit. There's the astronauts. There's the engineers. Closed door. And then you've got, so another thing that we can do for this page is to have a framing device around it that bleeds throughout and behind and around all the panels. And in this context, it's space. Ooh. And all of these panels sit over top. Now, we can describe what the actions are that are being taken, or we can just example them and narrate something else, right? Mankind's taking to the stars. Shouldn't you draw the egg first? Oh my God. You know what? I'm going to switch this panel. That's so good. There's the egg. It's just an egg. That's a fantastic closer, Paul. Fantastic. Thank you so much. The dawn of mankind doesn't matter. The chicken's just worried he came from an egg. So, rocket cockpit astronauts close the door, and mankind goes into space with the incognito chicken witness. And so we can have the explosions here as the rocket, takes off and moves off into space. I don't know what the rocket looks like. Let's put a bunch of side things on it and a big one at the bottom, and then here's the front of it. We'll make it look like a spaceship because it's my page and I can draw whatever I want. I want to draw a spaceship. So, and then we've got the circles, okay? And for the windows on the ship. And then we can cut to a shot of, here's the circles, okay? And we'll see the astronauts inside. And we'll have this astronaut turned to look at something here, okay? Excuse me. And then for this last panel, right? And it was a liftoff for there. Why not? I like the idea of incorporating text just as its own element. But for this last panel, we'll do it in a circle. And we've already drawn in, so we've gone here, liftoff, and then we've shown the rocket. We've pulled in on the windows and the astronauts in them. And then we'll just have a shot of a chicken just floating around inside. And we'll have a really curious face on, on the astronaut as he's looking up at a chicken floating around in the ship for no reason. And of course, the chicken's got his own little space helmet and his own similar spacesuit to theirs. But he's in zero gravity, so that's why he's not on the surface and he's just sort of floating around. So there's our crazy chicken in space idea. Needs to be the launch of Captain Saunders and the chicken. Colonel Sanders? Nice. Yeah, that's fun. So there's, and we'll have it, moving through the different stratosphere. And so you got, it's from a light to a mid to a deep to black. Light blue, mid blue, deep blue, black. And the stars are more prevalent as we move across. And then having the big text that just says liftoff. That's fun. Because a page like this We don't need any text on it. That's the fun thing about when we're trying different approaches on it. You can alter the story at the same time, and the approach to story, because we're not just exploring different visual elements, we're exploring different storytelling opportunities in here as well. So, this page can be talking about the history of mankind has had a secret witness, and you can do it like this sort of expository. There's been a secret chicken witness to history and mankind is our first narrative approach. And then our second narrative approach is, this is just a visual core element. Here's the chicken, here's all the events that the chicken's at, and there's all the different costumes that the chicken wears on the outside to blend in with mankind. Makes zero sense to anybody unless you understand that, and this is a problem sometimes with purely visual pages, unless the person understands that this is about the incognito chicken witness. And I mean, you can do something as simply as embedding that text, the incognito chicken witness, around the bird in the center. And that's all you need. And now the rest of the entire page makes sense. This can be the chicken, cluck, cluck, where man come from, or what is the origin of the world today, and just talk about the early origins of mankind. I don't know where they come from, but I know where I came from, and there's the egg. It's a different take on it. It's completely absurdist, but, and then we don't need any text other than liftoff for this one. And it's incorporating the text as a visual element, and so it's less about being text and more about, it being a visual component that just, happens to be made of text. So I think that all four of those are fun. Excuse me. If it's incognito, you need to put sunglasses on the chicken. Oh yeah, or a fedora cap, or whatever it is to have them blend in. That's why the costumes going around the outside edge of this one is funny and silly. I like the idea in the early Americas thing. It's just a chicken blending in with the environment, and in this one, there's, we've got one chicken at the end with a giant egg behind him going, I don't know where they came from, but I know where I came from. So he's been there to witness, or we can incorporate him in all those panels, because the whole intention is to show the chicken having witnessed these things, or exploring as the narrator the imagery itself. So 4 different choices. I have not got any specific one that I'll draw that one. I think I'm going to do space. I'm going to do the spaceship taking off. That's a nice compact one where I'm literally just drawing a silly idea. We've done a couple explorations like this with the penguins in space going to Mars and stuff like that. So having a chicken floating around a cockpit, that's a lot of fun too. And the best part of this page is the incognito chicken witness, is that the entirety of the page is a serious, here's the people at the thing, and here they're getting into the stuff, and they're putting on the fancy suits, and their rocket takes off, and that guy's looking up. There's a chicken in there. What the heck? Why is there a chicken in there? That's fun. It's far more subtle than everything else. Anyways, whole point of doing what I've done today, and I'm going to wrap up. The whole point of doing what I've done today is to explore potential avenues to take a suggestion and to tell different stories. And I think it's a healthy and helpful thing. I've been asked if someone has sent me a message in the past, and I got another little paragraph last night asking me about how do I break down, how does my mind work to break down pages in the way that I do. So this is the sort of course of action that goes through my head. That's why I just start drawing. And then, in this context, I draw a crowd of people. And in this context, I start drawing the boats, and I would just explore from there. Because I'm not a guy who sits down and plots the whole thing out before I draw it. I just don't. Everybody has different ways of working, and some people find a great resource in that. And I'm really happy that that's the case, because we all have to find our own means. But by exploring through this avenue, a problem that happens for me is often, well, I've drawn those things. I know what it is. That's why I don't want to do it. And so, I mean, for putting together these panels in the way that I have, well, I got the visual out of my head now, right? Well, I don't. It's still in my head, but I got the visual idea put down in some way, shape, or form, however loose and rough as it is. So I'm less inclined to just copy what I've done here than I am to, oh, I'm going to draw the rocket, and I'm going to draw the cockpit. And having done this and this is further of that, as cool as it is. So again, it's the same sort of feeling. So I think I'll do this one. I'll have this page done for tomorrow. But this has been a fun exploration. I know it's a different take on things by not sitting down and actually drawing the page itself, but generating the page idea together with you. So yeah, I hope that's been of help. And some of the examples and some of our talk about the different approaches to a page are of benefit to folks. And explore, have fun, write and draw stories, and try anything. Throw anything at the wall and see what fits for you, right? That's the easiest way to go about it. Thanks, Miriam. That's nice, yeah. But it's, again, the principle is X in the top left corner, X in the bottom right corner. Get there. Now, just getting there is one thing. Get your reader there. You're not thinking about how do I draw it so it goes this way. You're thinking about how do I put it together so that the reader goes that way. And then when we play with ideas like that, then it just becomes play, pure play, right? Okay, that's about it for me. I'll be back tomorrow at, thank you, Miriam. Thank you very much. I'll be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. EST. New time. I hope everybody has a great day. And I'll get this finished and posted in the morning. But that's about it for me today. Thanks very much for coming and hanging out. Bye for now.